Alrighty, and welcome back to my 81 cartridge story videos. Now we are on the last installment of the 4-part series. So now we are going to take on and go straight to number 61, which should be Galaga, as it says in the menu. But it's actually a Namco classic called Galaga. It's a spin-off of the Space Invaders formula, where it's still moving and shooting. A and B both do the shooting, but the enemies that fly around have a formation in rather than just moving back and forth preset on the screen. And the odd time will come down also to try and knock out one of your lives. But that's basically it just for Galaga anyway. Alright, please excuse my little glitch here. This is what happens when I reset the game too many times. It goes to 72 instead of 80, but number 62 is still Galaxian. So it again is another spin-off of the Space Invaders formula from Namco, except instead of having enemies or formation in like Galaga does, they stay stationary like they do in Space Invaders, and formation down, probably and sometimes in groups of 3 or 4, and try and knock you out one of your lives. Up next is Road Fight, and it's an interesting little racing game where it set up you are the red car. The computers can range from blue, yellow, and other red cars, and using B to accelerate, you move back and forth and dodging other players, or computers I should say, but we'll try and get to the goal, but you can also ram into opponents to try and destroy them. But the problem is, if you don't recover after hitting them, you spin out and you will hit the edge and you explode and you lose time, and I think you lose some fuel. And once you run out of fuel, your game's over. But you can pick up these little canisters along the way to refill your fuel. But again, it's just the recovering part that gets kind of tricky. Next up is Exeron, which is one of the few 2-player games on this. And as you've already noticed, that it's one of those... It's got a different flying depth perception than a lot of the flying sims on this one, as the screen comes scrolling to you. Although it's tricky because when the enemies come down, it's weird seeing they're coming from the top, but the way your ship angles when you change altitudes, it makes it kind of tricks the brain a little bit. At least it does for me. For trying to hit these little, what's it called? The neon butterflies, I guess, is what they kind of look like. Number 65 on our list is Popeye, and it's exactly what it is. You're playing as Popeye, and the entire objective of this game is to catch the hearts that Olive is dropping to fill up the house that says Popeye. Once that's full, I believe you run up top, and you know that's your little victory. Yay! You save Olive, kind of thing, from the other guy. I can't remember his name off the top of my head right now. But you do have a punching action, although I have yet to actually find a use for it. I'm not sure if you actually have to do it in later levels or not. But, yeah, it's one of those little cheesy games made off of a TV show. So, it's not horribly, horribly bad. Next up is Yair Kung Fu. I think I pronounced that right. I don't really care. But it's one of those little funny kung fu fighting games. And again, you're playing as these stereotypical Chinese characters, and you were playing as the skinny guy in the pink pants, using A and B, one to punch, one to kick, and a combination of crouching and jumping to knock out his health, which is, very standard. And as you move on, you get to fight other stereotypically named Chinese characters with weapons, and I don't know, it's just weird. Up next is Zippy Race, And it plays similar to Road Fight that I showed you earlier, except you can't do any attacking. You're playing as this guy on a motorcycle, and all you can do is just drive and try to dodge these horribly cheap computers, which sometimes when you're tailgating them, they just go back and forth with you at the same speed, and it gets really irritating, and if you can't drive over the grass. So if you, with the fork roads, like you can see in the scene here, you can't drive over. It gets really, really annoying after a while, just because the computers are so cheap. And you have to watch your gas meter, that's the blue and green bar. And otherwise you'll run out of gas again, just like in Road Fight. And you lose the game, because you can't drive anymore. Next is just Excite Bike, or Excited Bike is what they had on the menu screen. But this is just the straight up classic Excite Bike. There is, unlike the one that I was showing you earlier, which was the Excite Bike, which had the weird glitchy screen and everything. This is just the straight up regular one that you can even get on your 3DS as a 3D Classic. And yeah, not really much to say if you haven't played it. It's just move up and down the tracks while holding A, watching your temperature. Otherwise you spin out and crash and you lose time. Very simple, but still fun. Next is Urban Championship, another one of those games that they re-released as a 3D Classic on the 3DS. But I've never totally got the whole point of this game. You're playing as the guy in the blue hair, and you have a timer, but everything you do, your stamina bar will go down. So it's basically like having two stamina bars that'll also, or two timers, I mean, that'll go down, except one goes down when you do actions like punching or get hit. But you get knocked off the screen and rolls around, you gotta watch for falling objects, and I don't know, it's just kind of slower pace than I find than some of the other ones, so I don't really care for this one too much. But if you played it before and you like it, I don't hate you for it, but you know, it's never totally understood it. Time for number 70. It's called Mappy. You're playing as this little blue cop mouse, and the only way to really jump in this game is to press A on those little green elastics, which is the only way you will be able to jump. You can press A near a door to slam it in the other mice's face, and once you collect those little computer items, you press B and choose a little sound wave. That's the only way you can actually attack them. Other than that, it's just avoid them as much as possible, which is kind of hard because there's like 4 of them. Up next is Puyan, which sounds completely weird to what it actually is. Just by this little opening sequence here, there's this little red gator that kidnaps a little birdie. So now this Papa Birdie is pissed and he wants to get back. So the objective is to stop the gator. You have to talk about animal cruelty here, but you have to shoot the balloons and drop the gators to their deaths. Yeah, for kids, right? You get this little red item that lets you actually hit the gators to knock them off, and it responds quite frequently. But you get hit once, you lose a life, and you have to get rid of so many gators per segment. But I don't know, it's just kind of weird and almost kind of mean. Next is a game called Right on Bungling Bay, but it's kind of weird because the controls for this game are just so odd. You're playing as a chopper taking off from one of those little water aircraft carrier things. But here's the weird part. Flying around, you hold forward to go forward, and you turn with the left and right, right? But, you know, pressing and holding down will back you up in any given direction. And you're supposed to go destroy certain things. I haven't figured out what I was supposed to destroy yet, but I got lost so easily in this game because the arrow redirects you back to your ship, not to your objective. So it's just, this game was just all around confusing. I had no clue where I was going. Next up is a game called Macross. And this part has nothing to do with the actual game whatsoever. But you can kind of tell that if this game is made slightly by Japanese. You're playing as a ship called the Valkyrie, right? And pressing and holding B will shoot your little lasers, but if you press A and up, the back part curls up to the bottom. You slow down, and you have a Gatling gun. But if you press A and I think it was back, you transform into some sort of robot. And it's with the slowest mobility, but it has the best weapon abilities, but also has the biggest hitbox. So it's mostly used if you really need it. But it's just so weird. I didn't discover the second transformation, the curled up ship form, until a second playthrough. But I don't know. This game is just kind of funny to look at because 8-bit robots. What else is there not to like? Next up is a game called Sky Destroyer, and it's another one of those forward-scrolling airship games. Pressing A to shoot bullets and B to drop bombs, because in later levels you get enemies that come on the water. And I find that since the enemies come up front, which is nice, unlike the other flying game, it's harder to hit them this time around, just because of the depth perception. And you can fly up only so high, but the screen does scroll unlike the other one. But if you go too low, you hit the water and you die. Like that. Sad, I know. Next up is number 75, which is called Karateka. It's another one of those karate games, but this one is actually kind of neat. It also has very fluid animation for being on the NES. So you're playing as this guy, and you're running around, and I died, because I didn't understand. What you do is, when you run up to an enemy, you press down on the D-pad, and he takes a fighting stance, and then using B to punch, and A to kick, while angling your punches and kicks by pressing up and down on the control pad. And the little squares on the top actually are the indicator of their health bar. Once it reaches the side of the screen, the character gets knocked out. And it took me a minute to realize, because this game was very elaborate with the controls. So it did take a little bit of time to understand. And as far as I know, you cannot guard, but you can back up while you can move in your fighting stance. It's just not as fast as running. Pressing up again on the control pad will make you take a running stance again. But every time you go into a fight, you have to press down to take your fighting stance. Otherwise, you pretty much die in one hit. Number 76 is Circus Charlie. I thought it was Circus Circle for a second there, but it's Circus Charlie. You're playing as, I thought it was a little kid to start with. You're playing as a clown on a lion. And you just basically hold right and press A or B to jump through the rings of fire or the pots of fire. Yeah, I know. Very circusy, isn't it? Up next is a game called Battle City. In no way related to Yu-Gi-Oh, by the way, for those who actually still remember that series. The old series, not the new one. You select a stage, and then upon there, you're playing as a tank, and of course you're destroying other tanks. But pressing one of the buttons will fire from the tank, and you can destroy the other tanks, and you can destroy some of one block at a time. So you can have a Space Invaders strategy, and this game can take a little bit of strategy because enemies will spawn repeatedly, and collecting. One of the square items will produce an electrical barrier that not only protects you from shots, but will damage enemies when you run into them. So that's kind of cool. Next is a game called Formula Race, and this game is one of the more boring games on the cartridge. Whereas you just hold, I'm pretty sure it was just the A button to drive forward. Half the time I was playing this game with one hand. But you do have to dodge from side to side every now and then. But it's so boring, and it doesn't even look that great. They just look like little colored spoon things. And Ugh. Boring. Ugh. Now, one of the things I mentioned earlier by accident was V Mr. Mario. It wasn't on the first page, it's on the second page. Now, V Mr. Mario is like V Excite Bike. It's completely and utterly trippy. I thought my cartridge was glitching. Since I missed the Excite Bike in my initial recording, I mentioned this one, but this is the one that I actually had to make sure that I had to reset my game just to make sure that my game wasn't glitching out. It plays exactly like Mario Bros, but it's a total and utter screw with your mind. Trying to keep it PG-13 here, but it's oh my god, it confused the crap out of me, and yikes. All I can say is just yikes. I don't know why they would add a game like this, but it definitely screws up the regular difficulty level. And last but not least is number 80, which is chess, which is lying because it's actually Go. And I actually have no freaking idea how to play Go. And it's all in Japanese still. And I can't read it, so I'm not going to really go into it because I don't know how to play. So, thank you guys for sticking around this long if you did watch my very first 80-in-1 cartridge story video. And, yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed my over-commentary. And, yeah, that's 80-in-1 cartridge story. Thanks a lot, guys.